Good morning, mediums. Welcome to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. This is season 3, episode 7. I am your host, Chuck. The C stands for Chuck Manley, and I'm here with my co-host, Scott. I lift a lot of weight, Moon, and today we're missing Josh. Which wire do you cut, Hayes? Today, best-selling author Kacey Ezell returns to the show with her new novel, Assassin, and her co-author, Marisa Wolf. Kacey has written several short stories set in Chris Kennedy and Mark Wandrey's Horsemen universe. Kacey has been writing since 2009 and Marisa since 2007. And today they join us to talk about their writing journey. Welcome, ladies. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, Scott, what you been up to, man?
Well, I've been contemplating hats because
Yes.
both of our guests have some awesome bomber hats and whatnot. and I've been trying to twist Josh's arm into, there you go. See, so it's the Wonder Woman, which I think I would wear. Yeah. But I want a Keystroke Medium cowboy hat, and I think that would be so. Other than that, writing a lot. I'm really excited about our show sponsor today. I'm excited to talk to Kacey again and see what they're doing. Kacey and Marisa are doing with their book Assassins, which is coming out very soon.
This Friday, the 23rd. Hard launch.
So we normally get started off. We'll ask you kind of, hey, can you tell us about yourself and, how you got into writing and whatnot. So I don't know. We didn't really cover this before the show. Who wants to go first in that?
Kacey does.
Kacey does. I knew she did.
I could tell from her face.
Yeah.
I was going to say you do. They've talked to me before.
We should also, I should warn you before you get really into your story, is that we could have a special guest if the TSA is not performing an invasive strip search on Josh at the airport.
Yeah. I thought I heard a rubber glove in the background when he
I heard something. It sounded like a cat.
I don't know. It was a little snap sound. You never know.
So he may jump in and save us all because Chuck and I are off the rails already.
Oh, it's already going off the rails.
It's that kind of party. I'm ready. Let's do it.
There you go.
All right, Kacey, what have you been up to since the last time you were on?
So I finished a book with Marisa, and I was actually working on it at the time that we spoke last time. So I'm super excited to bring you guys Assassin. It is it's a spin-off novel in the Horsemen universe. So it's not part of the main storyline, but eventually the storyline that we begin in Assassin will lead back and reintegrate with things in the future. So insert ominous foreboding here.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I've been working on that and working on, I started the sequel to my solo novel, Minds of Men, the sequel will probably not be out for several months still because I am sort of ADD with my writing projects these days. I think I'm working on 3 or 4 right now. Been working on a couple of short stories for both for the Horsemen universe and then also for Bane books. And then also working on a book called Weaver with Mark Wandrey, who is the creator of the Horsemen universe. That's another spin-off novel that we've been doing.
So really, you're not busy at all, is what you're saying?
No. Yeah. And then sometimes I go to work, and sometimes I have, raise children.
When you have to. So Marisa, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I've been writing since I was 6, but I only got published in 2017. So, but I've been writing with Kacey since like 2003 or something. So,
wow.
We've been writing Pern fan fiction. So we are super cool. So great. So yeah, I've been getting into this world and learning so much about just publishing and editing and how writing as an English major is very different than writing, cat assassins, turns out. So yeah, that's it. I have a lot of dogs, so I hang out with them. I like to introduce myself as a woman who has been both headbutted by an alligator and also a very clumsy black belt. I wasn't headbutted by a black belt. I just am one.
What's your black belt in?
Taekwondo.
Excellent.
So
what happened to the alligator after he?
Yeah, how do you get headbutted by an alligator without?
This is the best story. Just so you guys know, this is the best story.
Do you want the whole story though? I feel like we have a lot to talk about.
You know, just
we're
as
easy.
much of it as you feel comfortable telling.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you the whole thing. So we were talking about having a flat Josh earlier. Do you know about Flat Stanley?
I seem to have heard about Stanley.
Yeah, it's a kid's book, and like in the world of the book, Stanley is 2-dimensional and everybody else is 3-dimensional. So he mails himself places to experience the world. So when I was teaching in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, my baby brother was in 2nd grade, and they did the Flat Stanley project. And so it was color this little Flat Stanley and mail it somewhere cool, and he gets pictures and you send it back, and there was a prize. And so to a little boy in Connecticut, Louisiana felt like a whole other world. So I got Flat Stanley. And I thought, okay, what do 2nd graders like? And alligators, totally. Everybody loves alligators. So I called up the swamp tour place and I said, hey, so I know you have this alligator on the swamp tour. I just did the swamp tour a few weeks ago. Can I just come take a picture with the alligator? And she said, we don't really do that. And I was like, okay, just my little brother is doing this Flat Stanley. And she cut me off right away. She's like, oh my God, I love Flat Stanley so much. Calm down. Yes. Tour ends at this time. Just come see. And so it's like a 3-foot long alligator, right? It's mostly tail. So I was like, this is going to be awesome. The whole Flat Stanley. They'll hold the alligator. They'll take a picture. I will leave. Easy peasy. Horribly wrong. So I go down. The tour is ending. People are coming off the boat. The girl's with me with my camera. And this very Louisiana-looking gentleman comes to the edge of the boat. And he's like, hey, you the girl with the picture? And I said, yeah. And he's got the alligator. I was all excited. And he's like, cool. Throws the alligator into the air at me. So, mistake.
This is not how I thought it was going to go. When did we start throwing alligators?
It was airborne alligator. He's remembering that dinosaurs became birds. I don't know. It's absurd. So my first large mistake of the day is I catch the alligator.
Oh, good job.
So step one, I am not very sporty. I don't catch things very well.
It's like dodgeball with alligators. Like I caught him, everybody's out.
Right. Why didn't I just go like, nope, don't. What?
High block on that
thing. Clenching this alligator, strangling it probably, just like clenching it. And I think to myself, okay. So probably his mouth is taped shut. It's probably a very safe alligator because I'm disregarding the fact that this man just threw an alligator at me. So safety is not the most important thing happening right now. So I relax my grip very, very slightly, and the alligator immediately senses my weakness and starts just scraping the heck out of my arm. And then I was like, oh crap. So I released a little bit more, and the alligator was like, yeah, okay, girl. And just reared back with his not soft head and bam, just slammed his head into my head. My sunglasses flew off. Everything's everywhere. Still don't drop the alligator. And so I'm like clenching it again. I was like, can you please take the effing picture? And so in the picture, it's sort of like this. I like Flat Stanley's crushed under the alligator. So then I shove the alligator back. I leave. I get to the car. I call my, at the time, new boyfriend, now husband, because obviously you marry this girl.
Right. That's your first move.
Right.
Definitely a keeper.
I mean, yeah. And he's from Louisiana. And so I called to say I got headbutted by an alligator. He's like, woman, we have done some stupid shit. Can we swear?
Oh, yeah.
Stupid stuff. Cool. In swamps, and I've never been headbutted by an alligator. What did you do? And I was like, well, I'm so stressed out. I'm sweating. And I was like, oh my God, I'm bleeding. And I just started laughing. There was like this tiny drop of blood that like formed in my eyebrow and slowly came down the side. So
like a tear.
It was just very, very gently. So that was the day my then boyfriend bought my first present for me, which was a helmet. And now we're married. So
that is a fantastic story.
I've bought practical presents before like that, and practical gifts sometimes just because you get in trouble for this will be very useful.
I still have it. It's an important helmet.
You should have it in the writing room. It should be part of your art collection.
It really should. It should be part of your background.
Next time it'll be back there. You're right.
So tell us a little bit about Assassin, guys. What's the story there?
Me?
Yes.
Risa, you
a lot of me. You go.
Okay. So Assassin is a story of it's a story about this alien race that exists in the Four Horsemen universe. They're a felinoid race of very scary assassins. Hence the title. They're called the Depic, and we introduced them in my short story in A Fistful of Credits, which was the first Four Horsemen anthology. That story got some buzz because it was kind of different for everything else in the anthology. I mean, it's a world of mechs and mercenaries, right? I mean, that's the whole setting. My story is about a druggie who used to be a xenobiologist and tried to study these creatures, and then happens upon one, when she's coming off of a high. And I was trying to play with the themes of, how humans will find stray cats and, take them in and take care of them. I was kind of trying to flip that script, and or alligators. Yeah. So, and that grew into this, this species of kind of the ultimate assassin that can, basically walk invisibly, and they're immune to nerve agents and, all kinds of scary stuff. But they're also like super cute and cuddly because they're cats. So I wrote that story, and Chris and Mark liked it, and asked me if I wanted to expand it to a novel. And I said, yes, I do, but I'd really like to have my friend come and help me. And they said, sure, let's do it. And so that's how Marisa got involved. And Assassin is the story of the four main characters are the four children of the character featured in that first story. So
cool. I got a question for either of you, or you can kick it back and forth. What's it like to write in the Four Horsemen universe? I know there's kind of like a universe Bible or whatever, and some things. So you have some rules and things you can and can't do, but you're also given like a lot of space to do your own thing. So what is that like, and what is maybe one takeaway that you learned from that process?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the headline is, it's so fun. It's such a cool universe with things that you can blow up and things that you can murder. I really like assassins, clearly. So, but it also it feels like a universe, and there's so much room, like you said, because there are thousands of species out there. Yeah. So I think we invented probably like 3 or 4 new aliens in the course of the novel. And I mean, I think a big takeaway is it is in the way that the universe is structured, there are very few actual rules for the galactic agreement. And I think that's sort of how writing in the universe is too. There are some guidelines. You can't have, antimatter or whatever, or real, what is it? Fake gravity. Can't have fake gravity.
Anti-gravity. Yeah.
Whatever. Anti-gravity. Antimatter is a real thing. That's fine. So you can't have that. Like, there are a couple of things, but mostly like you were really given the freedom to
I don't think you can't use their big super monsters, or isn't there like there's some creatures that are central to their books. Mm-hmm. I think you have to kind of give those a wide berth. Yeah.
And you do
but that was sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Chris and Mark are so responsive. So like if you have a question, so at first we weren't sure if we should touch the peacemakers, but then we kind of really needed them. And so, we touch base with Kevin, we touch base with Mark and Chris, and you're able to find the ways to do the things you need to, or they will get back to you really quickly to say, nope, that is not a thing you can do. And then you haven't wasted any time. Like, they're so responsive. It's pretty cool.
And they're very attentive. Some people, they just kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say, some people you do collaboratives, it's like, yeah, come do whatever you want, but they're not really like quality checking, I guess. Or I've heard stories of these, but they are. I know I wrote a story in one of their anthologies, and they called me out on that pretty quickly. I didn't particularly agree with their point of view, but they were obviously more right than I was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, sure. Yeah.
And we went on.
Yeah, no, and I found I fully agree with everything that Marisa said. The biggest takeaway that I've taken from this process of working in, someone else's universe, first writing stories and then writing a full novel, is that it is impossible. It is impossible to do these kinds of things if you don't have really excellent communication. And that is an area where Chris and Mark both really, truly excel. So
they're super good guys.
Yeah.
I had a thought there, and I just lost it because Chuck made a funny face at me. I'm like,
He's like, actually, the funny face was the fact that I have never in 40 years of writing collaborated with anybody.
We talked about that on another show. He's like,
well, the whole collaboration thing is actually very intriguing to me. And I was wondering, and I know you two collaborated on the book, but at the same time, you were collaborating with the other two guys who kind of set up the whole universe. So you got like 4 hands in the pie, so to speak. How did the two of you work together, working together with them? I mean, I realize the communication was a big part of it, but I mean, like the actual nuts and bolts of getting the words on the page and everything produced. How did that all work out?
Yeah, I mean, so the nuts and bolts of it, we didn't interact too much with Chris and Mark except to check things. Right, Kacey? Is that?
Yeah, no. So typically the way that it worked is Marisa and I hashed out the plot of what we wanted to do with these, because I basically came to the table saying, hey, I have these 4 characters. I need to write a novel about them. Ready, go. And so the 2 of us, we figured out between us the mechanics of our collaboration. And in this particular case, it worked out really well because I had 4 characters, and because of how we sort of came to writing together through the fan fiction world, which is super dorky. We're just going to throw that out there and acknowledge it and own it. Right. The way that typically worked is that each individual would have like their character, and then you would write from your character's point of view. And it, from a story perspective, it doesn't work well for other people to.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Because you're right in the middle of a good thing too.
Yeah. Oh, you're back. You're moving again. Go for it.
You went away for a second.
Okay, where did you lose me?
You were right in.
It doesn't work for 2 perspectives in a scene.
Right, because you're constantly head hopping. Okay, but it works well from a writing perspective because you get really used to that particular character's voice and getting in their head. So the way that Marisa and I sort of leveraged that for this book is we had 4 characters. She took 2, I took 2. I'm not going to tell you which ones we took, so everyone who's watching this can guess after they read it who wrote whom. But so that worked really well. So then we figured out what the intertwining plot lines for these 4 characters was going to be, and we basically just talked to each other pretty much every night for about 6 months. It
was amazing.
Well, you guys have been writing for so long, so
yeah. Right, and we really are great friends, and because she puts up with me, and so when a question would arise, it was super simple I think it was mostly just me. I would just shoot an email to Chris and say, hey, what do you think about this? And if he needed to consult with Mark, he would. And I think I asked Mark about maybe 1 or 2 things directly, just mostly because I couldn't get a hold of Chris. But Chris is the continuity editor for the entire universe. So, and he's great at, I don't know how he does it, but he's great at kind of keeping things straight and stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm following along also in our live chat because as we started, we tried to decide if
there are shenanigans afoot.
No, they are truly they're really concerned about this alligator fan.
The best story.
Yeah, alligators apparently are too cold-blooded for erotica.
Yeah.
Good to know, right?
They're also super not soft, you guys. I would not recommend. They impact that is a high impact sport, is what I'm saying.
Do not recommend. There's also some ideas
that we're trying to keep shame.
That we should have an engagement helmet. Would be a tradition that would be very, very good to pursue.
Yes.
That person's brilliant. Agree.
Yeah. So with the assassins, you have four points of view. I'm just trying to catch myself up because I'm kind of slow and you have to bang me over the head. So you have 4 points of view. Each wrote 2.
Does anybody have an alligator?
Yeah. There's no alligators. No alligators were harmed in this series at all.
Just people.
People and cats. Yeah. So are some of the main characters, are they all human or some of them aliens, or what are your thoughts on that?
Ooh,
so none of them are human.
Yeah.
None of them are human. Oh, good. I like it.
The perspectives are alien.
Right. We have one scene. It's the epilogue scene, and that is from a human point of view. But the entirety of the novel is all told through the points of view of the 4 Depic characters. So they're all Depic, which we make a point of saying in the novel is not a word that they themselves use. They call themselves hunters because that's sort of their paradigm, through which they see the world. And again, I was really inspired by my own cats that are adorable and soft and cuddly and sociopathic and will you know, capture small animals and literally play with them to death. I mean, it's really, really creepy.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to, you know, when I first
ever had a cat bring you part of an animal.
No, yes, I've had that happen, and I've had them bring me the entire animal and then proceed to torture it to death in front of me while I'm trying to capture it and put it out of its misery. Yeah, so you know, I wanted to when we first talked about it, that was one of the first things that I mentioned to Marisa, because she owns dogs, but she's had cats or known cats before, and so I was like, I really want to capture this essence of, you know, because the Depik as a race, one of their hallmarks is that they really have no F's to give. Like, they don't care. They'll take a contract on anybody except one of their own, unless it's inconvenient for them to do so. Because much like cats, they, you know, if something's inconvenient, they're just not going to do it.
It's all about them.
Yeah. Exactly. This explains a lot about cats for me in general. Cats are actually aliens. I've always asserted this.
Yeah, I feel like it's accurate, and they're alien assassins, so you're lucky that they like you.
Right.
If they like you. It was the so after Kacey invited me to do this novel, she also challenged me to write a short story, which is in the good, the bad, and the murk, so I could sort of get my head wrapped around the cuddly sociopath. And at one point, after I sent him my short story, the editor came back and was like, "Oh, this makes him sound like really cold and brutal." And I was like, "Yep, he doesn't care. He is here to play with his food." So that's his whole approach.
Success.
Yeah, I was like, "Thank you. That's what I wanted."
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Mr. Editor. Or Mrs.
Got
Editor.
a little blush. It was good.
It's right before the show started. I was actually when Marisa came on, I was actually staring at. Oh, actually, was that you, Kacey?
One of you
came on. You, Kacey, came on, and I had a bunch of screens covering my screen, so I didn't know I was being watched. And I had just been sent back a story from one of the editors, and it's actually one that's already been approved and is going out pretty close here on the Dark Landing series. But like Craig sent to me, says, just so you know, this is what the editor said about what you did, because we have a process where he finalizes stuff. And I was like, and so I'm looking at it, I'm like, do I love this editor? Do I hate this editor? And I'm having now that emotional first reaction to an editor. And I was like, oh, wait, I have company. I'm sorry. It's awkward.
I was not judging. Like, I feel your pain, my friend.
Yeah,
so
it's good.
Yeah.
Editors are awesome, wonderful people. And I was recently messaging with Ellen Campbell, and Ellen, and she was schooling me, so I really appreciate that. I always do. So
yeah. I've learned so much. These editors are amazing.
Do we want to talk about some stories as out there, or do we want to talk more about your writing process? Because I'd like to get into tools that you guys use, how you use them together. I'd like to get into plotting versus pants, just all the normal topics as we go. So do you want to talk about some of your other books, Kacey, before we go into all that tech stuff?
Well, sure. But I'm actually really excited about the tech discussion.
We can circle back around too if you want.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. So Marisa and I were sort of figuring this out as we went along. But the process that we ended up using, I really liked, and I'm using it with other collaborations, because apparently I'm incapable of writing a novel by myself. But the way it ended up working is I persuaded her to invest in Scrivener because I'm in love with it. I think it's just such a phenomenal tool for keeping yourself organized, and I love the ability to write scenes as discrete scenes and move them around as necessary.
Yeah.
And all that. I'm a big fan. So I talked it up to Marisa, and she purchased it. The one drawback, of course, of Scrivener is that it is not ideal for real-time collaboration. So the workaround that we ended up utilizing is we decided that I was keeping the master Scrivener document, and I sent her. We did a basic outline of, okay, these are the four. We wrote them. Yeah, we wrote them as four separate books, but in the end product, the chapters are integrated, basically chronologically. So you'll get like you'll get a chapter for one character, and then go, you know, the next chapter will be for the other character, kind of George R.R. Martin style, I guess.
Right.
Brand,
yeah. You know,
yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So, but we didn't write them that way. We wrote them discreetly. And so, you know, we both had access to the outline, which was in the form of like a Google Sheets spreadsheet kind of thing. And then I would write my scenes and I would sync them to Dropbox, which I shared with her.
Oh my God.
Oh
my God.
Josh is here.
How was the strip search?
TSA guy.
That was a long TSA process.
Take it like a man.
Cool. Can you guys hear me okay?
Just a little quiet.
Muffled,
You're
but
very
all
quiet.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because
We were talking
these headphones.
We're talking about Scrivener. You came in right during the Scrivener talk.
Nice.
Yeah.
So cool thing about the TSA screening is I got pre-TSA, so I didn't have to take any of my stuff off. I just walked right through.
That's
Good for you. Good for you, man. But yeah, so I would write, you know, my scenes. I would upload them to a file on Dropbox. Marisa would write her scenes. She would upload them to a separate file on Dropbox, both of which were shared with one another. And so then once she would tell me that a scene or a chapter was done, I would load up the RTF and import it into the master Scrivener document. And then that's sort of how we kept track of everything. And then once we had all of the scenes drafted, we compiled it to a Word document and just, you know, did kind of the finishing editing and touches in Word. So
she makes that sound really easy because like there are three things I'm going to interject there. One, it took a lot of screen sharing in Skype and a crap ton of cursing to figure out this process.
Well, the cursing is integral to the process, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probably implied, but I just wanted to make it explicit. And then two, we actually plotted this novel 2 or 3 times. Because fun fact, when you have a mystery, you should actually know how it ends before you start writing. Or even what you want the mystery to accomplish.
That's
we sort of rediscovered that. Yeah. It was really fun.
It's a mystery to me all the way to the end.
And then you're like, oh, this is what happened.
Right.
What happened?
Yeah. We were trying to figure out how the crime was done at the same time that the characters were, which was, you know, probably not the best way.
It meant that we had to go back to scenes a good 4 or 5 times to make sure that the right information was happening and the right red herrings. Where, you know, maybe we wouldn't have had to go back quite as often if we had known the details, but whatever, it's fine. We learned a lot about writing mysteries. They are hard.
So when you do the Scrivener thing, you guys are both working in Scrivener. And I'm recapping a little bit. So you both have Scrivener, and then you work in Scrivener. You compile them to the master. You never like Marisa never logs into your Scrivener like through Google and then makes changes. I know that the SPP guys they do some sort of weird version of that where they have like a check-in system.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out how to make that work. We would have, you know, it would have obviously, I would have preferred if, you know, we could both work off the same master. But yeah, we're just not that smart.
That's already
we're smart about a lot of other things.
It would have been a lot more cursing. We were sort of out of words at that point.
You can make up new words.
Yeah, we did.
Because the two curse words I fall back on, especially if I'm not quite sure my audience, I will use Chuck Norris as a curse word, and I'll use Josh Hayes as a curse word.
Josh Hayes. Yeah.
Josh Hayes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's pretty
only
powerful.
because I fix most of his headaches.
Right.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of a curse, kind of an invocation.
The next one they go after is
yeah, it's always fun to make up curse words. I got injured in the middle of the woods one time and had to be taken back to a medical tent on the back of a 4-wheeler. So I had like a dislocated shoulder, and I'm in the bitch seat, and I'm holding on to the rack on the back, and I'm bouncing like this. And every time they bounce, my shoulder would pop up, and I would just I said things I couldn't even remember what I said. I was cursing so loud. That is always fun.
Yeah. I bet you one of those curse words had to do with an alligator busting you.
There was alligators and something about alligator cat erotica. I don't remember exactly.
That sounds right.
Yeah, is that happening in the chat right now? Oh my gosh.
It's trending. It's trending. You guys are going to get right. It's a thing now. Hey, Scott, I heard that Craig Martell and Michael Anderle have a book on sale today.
That's why you're the best co-host yet, because I totally forgot.
And it's right on time.
It's right on time.
Which is why I like you guys.
It's like almost like a professional thing. So now, assuming that I can find my little link I had here, I'm going to do this. Craig Martell, as you'll notice, I put in some props because I have "Where is Josh Hayes" on my board back here, and also Craig Martell.
Where in the world is Josh Hayes?
So I'm glad we answered that question.
I'm not learning how to make meth this week, so
no. Well, really, it's kind of like riding a bike. Once you've done it, you probably don't ever have to try it again. So that's another backstory. So for what we have Craig Martell doing, he's obviously deep into the Age of Expansion. So today, his book, The Price of Freedom, Age of Expansion, excuse me, the Kutherian Gambit series, Bad Company, Book 3. This is discounted only today. So if you're watching this live or you hear it sometime today, then it'll be 99 cents. That's the way they roll over there. And it's kind of like a reward for loyal fans. So I'm going to read the description for Freedom, Age of Expansion, Bad Company, Book 3. Excuse me. Wow. Now I'm all nervous.
Don't be nervous, guys.
You got this.
Don't do it. This humanity's greatest export, justice. Space is a dangerous place, even for the wary, especially the unprepared. The aliens have no idea. Here comes the bad company. On Earth, parents told stories about the devil to frighten children, but devils exist, and from time to time, they find their way here. Terry and Char, the bad company's direct action branch into combat to rid a world beyond the borders of a new incursion. All it will cost is the inhabitants' most advanced technology, a miniaturized power supply that will revolutionize the Etheric Federation. Probably saying that wrong. Nathan wants it badly enough that he's made this mission non-negotiable. Terry's hands are tied as he takes the team into the hot zone. Join Terry and Char as the War Axe delivers the team to a planet outside of Federation space where they have to convince the local aliens that the bad company is from the government and they're here to help. Join the bad company as they fight an enemy from their worst nightmares. It also says, very importantly, please note, if cursing is a problem, this might not be right for you. So,
my kind of book.
If you ever spoke to Mr. Anderley in person, he's right up our alley as far as
I'm going to have
vocabulary.
a dinner with him this week.
Nice.
Ask him to clean it up. Say, can you just tone it down a little bit? Your swear words offend me deeply. So check that out. Craig today, he goes, it's bad when you can't remember. I thought this was the 15th book in the series, but it's actually the 16th because that guy is a writing machine.
That's awesome.
So anyway, well,
before you guys continue, I just wanted to say, hey, I'm getting ready to board the plane, so I will let you guys go and hopefully watch a little bit of YouTube before I get out of here. So
Nice.
tell them they have to
Have a
wait to
safe
hold the
flight.
plane.
Yeah.
Hold the plane.
Yeah, wait a minute. I'm in the middle of a conference.
Super important, guys. Alligators are involved.
All right.
Cool.
Have a
You
safe
guys have
flight.
fun with the show.
Take it easy, Josh.
Bye.
Bye.
Have some bullet bourbon on the way.
Yes.
That's it. That's the best way to get through air travel these
There
days.
you go. All right.
Unless you're
So
at the controls.
right. I had a friend who was an air marshal back in the early days, and he tells me a story where it was the air marshals were kind of taking some heat at the time, and he walks onto this plane, and the pilot says, "Are you one of those air marshals who can't shoot?" And if you know my friend Mike, he can definitely shoot. So he immediately snapped back with, "Are you one of the pilots that are drunk?" So, I don't think they were.
That is a spicy comeback. Well done. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. Anyway, so good times, fun with air marshals.
Funny.
What were we talking about? We're talking about Scrivener and writing assassins and all the miracles that takes to make that happen.
That is correct. Are there any other tools you guys use besides Scrivener? Anything you use to organize your research or anything like that?
I mean, Scrivener has spaces to put like your character studies and your research, which is super helpful. I definitely had like 8 Google docs open at a time. So like the 4 Horsemen Bible, the different links, notes from different other stories. And there were a couple of scenes that Kacey and I couldn't write separately, or I guess we could have, but it was much easier to do together. So we used Google Docs for that to write it in fine fan fiction style, where we were doing each from the perspective of our character, and then whoever owned the chapter would take it back and clean it up into one perspective, which was it was helpful to have all of those like flexibility options.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that was the big stuff.
Definitely.
So tell me a little bit about fan fiction. I've always been curious.
Let's talk about Pern, because you guys were writing.
I love McCaffrey back in the day, all the Pern books and everything, and I've always kind of wanted to dip my toe into the whole fan fiction arena just out of curiosity. But what's it like? What is it? You just write it and post it for other fans to read, and how's that work?
So it's a little different depending on the clubs. So I'm gonna take us back to 1994, 95.
Holy crap.
AOL sent you a CD every couple of months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so the first time I got onto AOL, I found the Pern fan fiction boards. And I think my entire brain exploded. Like, it was like, oh my God, there's so many other nerds. I had no idea. I'm so excited. And because I was also like 13 or 14, I picked whichever club was at the top, and I sent in a character that was basically me, except, prettier and funnier and whatever.
Dragon.
And would have a dragon, obviously.
Of course.
Basically me. So, so in those clubs, that was like, you posted in these chat groups, not chat groups, message boards, I guess. And then like there were like these actual like chat rooms where you would do like the hatchings and the big things. Oh my God, it's even nerdier than I remember. And then as the years went on, there were these play by email clubs, where you would do the character role play in the email list, and then you would write stories offline that would go into a zine, because zines. So yeah, I don't know, Kacey, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much the same story with me. I didn't find the world of Pern fan fiction until I was in college, so it was probably 97 or so. But the last time I was on the show, I told you guys that basically Anne McCaffrey has inspired my entire adult life and all of my choices, because I wanted to be a dragon rider. So when I found this entire ecosystem of people who were basically playing out that fantasy, in their writing, again, my head about exploded. I was like, holy shit, I can be a dragon rider, so yeah, so that's how I got started. And then Marisa and I met Ezell, was it?
That sounds right, yeah.
Early 2000s, through one of those play by email clubs. And the thing about these clubs is that, there's no like audition process or anything like that. So you're going to get writers of wildly varying quality. And especially because, you are going to get your 13-year-old girls who are just writing self-inserts, and you're going to get your 40-year-old girls who are writing self-inserts. And, so it's, but everybody comes, everybody is at a different starting place, and, has different skills and different backgrounds and stuff like that. And the one unifying thing is that we all just really want to be dragon riders, right? So that's what we're all writing about. But Marisa stood out as a person whose her characterizations I really enjoyed, and her interactions that she worked, that she would write, I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed writing those interactions with her. And so we started having a lot of characters interact with one another. Wow. And so that's sort of how our writing relationship began, in the nerdiest possible way.
I will say an awesome thing about fan fiction, it's really where I did the bulk of my learning about how to develop a character. Like, there are characters I played for probably 6 or 7 years, right? So like, you really have to learn to develop them on the front end, and then like let them evolve, so they're not just the same thing over and over. And I also got super into writing the politics of Pern, which is one of my favorite things, and slightly helped with some of this maybe there's a conspiracy with this mystery stuff for Assassin, just thinking about like, everybody's the hero of their own story. So what is the motivation, and where do we go? It's not like this one's just banana pants crazy. Like, there is some motivation there.
Yeah, it's a lot like role-playing gaming, which a lot of writers come from the RPG world, because for the same reasons, you learn to create a character, and you learn to create a world, and so it's you get you get attached to these people just like you do, your regular characters, because they become your imaginary friends.
I was actually running a game last night. I'm a gamer. I've got 30 years of it under my belt, and a lot of my plotting and stuff like that, I cut my teeth having to juke and jive with these players as they threw curveballs at me.
Right.
So I hear exactly
yes. Yeah, because there's very definitely a role play aspect to the Pern fan fiction writing that we were doing. Now, there's also just straight fan fiction where people just write stories, self-contained stories, and then post them on various fan fiction venues or whatever. But I never really got into that. I enjoyed the playing aspect of it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I wanted to live out my fantasy of being a dragon rider.
Why not? Now you're, as I recall from your bio, you're a helicopter pilot, Air Force, right?
Yeah. And again, I'm a pilot because that was
you wanted to ride dragons. Yeah, I've always said I went into science because I wanted to be a wizard.
Right?
It's kind of the same thing.
Yes. Chemistry is just potions. Yeah. No, I feel you. I totally feel you.
That's so good.
Oh my gosh. Someone is writing Star Trek The Next Generation / fiction in this chat over here. This is fantastic.
Are there alligators?
There are Gorn. Someone was asking what the Gorn were called. So there you go.
Okay. Well,
Shenanigans have reached a new level today.
You're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. We should probably just own that, Risa.
I'm going to take it. Fine. We got this.
Yeah. I know that at the 20 books to 50K last year, they had a couple of nights where people met up to role play game RPG clubs, and there's a lot of RPG lit authors there as well. A lot of romance and a lot of science fiction, but also urban fantasy and some RPG lit stuff. I think that's kind of getting bigger.
Yeah.
It's a hot genre right now. Yeah. With Ready Player One and the popularity of that, it's just sort of spun off.
I have not read Ready Player One, and I feel like a terrible person for not even having read it.
No, it's at the very top of my to be read list right next to me.
There you go.
So,
see,
I've not read it yet.
My reading list is rather out of control right now, like most people. So.
I believe so. Yeah, I've got it on the shelf over here. My son read it, and he's insisting I read it so we can talk about it. But oh well, I haven't gotten to it.
It will happen.
So are we now? Have we covered? Are we plotters, pansters, or something else? Because I have an interesting plotting story to tell you guys. If we have run out of, or there's a time for it. I don't know. Sorry.
It kind of seems like you would have to be collaborating. I mean, you'd have to have a plan in front of you, right?
We had a very loose plan. So again, in a sense, we wrote 4 separate novellas that intertwined with one another in some of the crucial events and in their conclusion. So yeah, we started off with it's actually a tool that originated. I got it from Griffin Barber, who got it from Eric Flint, and I don't know if Eric developed it or if he got it from someone else, but it's apparently because Eric Flint co-writes with 1 million people. It's apparently like a really widespread tool. It's just this very simple spreadsheet system that just says, okay, this is the main plot point that happens. These are the ramifications. This is the day it happens. This is who it involves. So we just use that framework to hash out, okay, these are the main events that are going to drive the actions of the story. And then the individual characters' sort of specific reactions and their specific courses of action that they took based on those things were something that we kind of, at least well, you did too, kind of figure it out like as we went along. But the whole time there was a constant conversation between the two of us. So the biggest thing that I've taken away from this particular experience working with Marisa is that I don't ever want to write a book with someone I don't like.
That's real.
Yeah. Well, because you're going to you want to have somebody you have that kind of chemistry and stuff with. Now, could there ever be a situation where like you damaged a friendship because of some sort of artistic conflict? I mean,
I hope not. I hope
me. So I figured that's probably a danger. He's like, no.
Yeah. I hope that at least with my friendships and the writing relationships that I have, I looking at them right now, I can't foresee that necessarily happening because everybody's pretty grown up. But I mean, obviously that potential exists. Of course it exists, you know, because when you get down to it, it's a business relationship, right? It's a business relationship between friends, and that's always tricky. So it's important that everybody is grown up and meets their obligations and communicates about stuff. So as long as you do that, I think you're solid. I think
that the role playing game backgrounds and stuff, with like a lot of writers nowadays have, is a collaborative pastime. So it makes sense that we would have collaborations now and they would work.
Yeah. I'll say too, it really is that communication piece, because Kacey was 90% done when I had like 10,000 words, maybe. I was wrapping up a job and I was very much all over the place. But like I never went radio silent on her. I would reach out and be like, hey, so I have no idea what I'm doing, or I am super in my own head, because this is my first novel, right? So I've never written 65,000 words at a go. And so I definitely got in my head a couple of times where I was like, well, I'm terrible, and I am only here as a favor from Kacey, and I'm going to drag her down, and this is awful. And one of the many things that Kacey is good at is like, I'm going to need you to sack up. I love you so much, and you are so talented, and sack the fuck up. And I was like, shit, right. Okay. Yep. And I did, and it was amazing. But had I gone radio silent, like I think that could have hurt our friendship, you know, like if I hadn't known and trusted her to say like, this is what's going on, and she hadn't known and trusted me enough to be like, okay, yep, what do you need? Because you're going to do this. I think that would have been different. So yeah, you've got to be a grown up. And when you're not feeling like a grown up, you have to go ahead and own that. So when I was being kind of a whiny baby, I was like, so I'm feeling kind of sad, and I need you to just tell me to shut up. Okay, thanks.
And to be fair, that too was a two-way street, because I definitely had my moments when I'm like, Marisa, this sucks. Like everything I write is trash. And she would be like, okay, well, it's normal for you to feel that way, but you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. And you're brilliant. And, you know, so stop whining and just keep writing.
You know, I think that's a constant for anybody that writes, though.
It is. It absolutely is.
Because, I mean, you know, even, you know, it happens to me. I'm sure it happens to Scott. I've heard Stephen King even has days where he's like,
Neil Gaiman had a very famous quote about it. Yeah.
What's the Neil Gaiman quote?
Well, naturally, I can't remember it. I just remember that it exists.
But I want to say it's something like everybody feels like an imposter. Right. And he was at a speech once, and Neil Armstrong was talking about how he feels like an imposter. And Neil Gaiman was like, if Neil Armstrong feels like an imposter,
that's a really good way to think about it.
I can get through this. I can. It happens to everybody. Literally everybody.
Yeah. So do you guys have like a launch strategy for Assassins this Friday, or is it something the other guys are handling, or what's going on with that?
Chris has an amazing launch strategy that I only know a very small part of. It's funny that you mentioned this, because so Chris Kennedy Publishing is an independent publisher, and he uses a lot of the Kindle self-publishing mechanisms and models, but he's a publishing house, and he's a small one, and he's independent, but he's the publisher, right? And I actually wrote an article on a blog called Mad Genius Club. It was like a guest post that was a counterpoint article to a very well-written piece by a friend of mine named Cedar Sanderson. And she had written about basically saying, hey, you don't need to worry about what these gatekeepers necessarily think. Like, you don't have to have anybody's approval to call yourself a writer, to be a writer, to do these things. You can do it all yourself. And she had great points, and her underlying point is sometimes science fiction in particular can be kind of cliquish, and her point was you don't have to be in the clique to be successful, which I agree with. I fully agree with. I think that we all define our own measure of success, and whatever that means to you, you are fully capable of accomplishing it. But I did want to counterpoint some of the things that she said, because, she wasn't necessarily saying that all publishing is terrible, but it was maybe possible for someone to read that in, you know what I'm saying? Sure. So when I wrote this article, I was like, I just wanted to say that I have the incredible privilege of working with two amazing publishing houses, Chris Kennedy Publishing and then Baen Books. And I've received nothing but amazing, amazing support from both organizations and their staffs. Chris is a staff of one, but he's still an amazing staff. And
he should be a 10 out of 10. He's like
I know. I don't know how he does anything. He like never sleeps, but but my point was that, you know, not all authors, like I have nothing but respect and admiration for you guys who can go out there and do all of your own, you know, like source all of your own editing and source your own covers and, you know, figure out your launch strategies and do all your own marketing. And like, seriously, hats off, guys, because I am not that girl. Like I do not have that in me. I need that support. Right. Yeah. Hard pass. I need that support. And Chris has been amazing at providing it. As has, you know, Tony and Christopher and Marla and everybody over at Bean Books. You know, both I recognize that I'm incredibly lucky to have just such great support from both publishing houses that I work with.
And so one thing that Chris is doing that I think is just so brilliant and has also selfishly given me a lot of joy, he sent the book out to advanced readers to start getting thoughts and so that reviews will show up when it's launched on Friday. And some of the advanced readers have been so excited. They have posted some reviews, which are the first reviews of my writing career. And they have been so glowing and beautiful that just, guys, if you are out there watching this, I am printing those out and I'm going to hug them to myself physically. And they're going to decorate these nerd walls. Your words are going to decorate my writing room because they make me so happy. So he does that to like get people excited and interested, which is awesome. And I am going to have a little baby book party in a week. So anybody in the Houston area who wants to come to a bar and talk nerd stuff should do that. But yeah, he's doing all the things. Like he's so great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful these days with blanket statements. You know, so much of the publishing industry now, a lot of people have this us, indie, them, trav kind of attitude. You know, this whole us and them thing. But at the end of the day, it's all just people, and people are good and bad. It just depends on who you're trying to interact with. Yeah. So, you know, I think that, you know, you can't come at it with that, well, they're doing it the old way, so they're bad, and we're doing it the new way, so we're good, because, you know, even some of the new way could use a little help.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got to be careful with that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just, you know, any sort of generalization is, you know, it's dangerous territory anytime and anytime.
Right. Exactly.
People like to fight the power, you know. So it's always people like to pick sides. My team is going to kick your team's ass right now. Watch that.
Just because I can.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing that has always struck me is that, like, especially in the indie world, a rising tide really does raise all boats, you know. And so like celebrate other people's success. Celebrate other people's success, because all it's going to do is you know, boost your own performance.
Exactly. I mean, how long does it take somebody to read a book? You know? Yeah,
right.
They might read my book this week, and then they'll say, "Oh, and then Kacey's got this great book I'm going to read next week."
The analogy I used one time is like, if you're selling a book for, you know, $5 or whatever, it's not like you're selling a Ferrari, where somebody's not going to come buy another Ferrari because you already sold them, you know, a $500,000 thing. They can buy lots of books and things. I also really want traditional publishing to succeed, because I like bookstores.
Yes.
And I want them to do good. I want them to be a bookstore, and I want to go there and drink coffee, and then I want to go, you know, buy my books online or whatever. That was just a horrible thing. Every time I go to the bookstore and then buy a book online, I feel guilty, but I still do it because
I still think the hybrid model is the way to be. I really do. Have a foot in both worlds, you know.
Sure.
And sooner or later,
it'll be
these will
interesting
come
to see
closer together.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out, because, you know, obviously with the loss of Borders and Barnes and Noble's kind of having some issues right now and stuff too. But I'm with you. Bookstores, you know, when several years ago, you know, right after my divorce, that was the place where I went to remember who I was and what I liked to do with my time. Now that I wasn't. You know what I mean? It's like I would go to the bookstore and I would browse and, you know, pick out a kid's book for my now 15-year-old, then like 1-year-old daughter. And, you know, I was just, so there's a definite there's definitely something about bookstores that you can't match. With
it
was always my happy place growing up too.
Yes.
I would always go into the science fiction and fantasy section, and I would find where Manly would fit. It was usually right next to Anne McCaffrey, as a matter of fact. And I would wedge a paperback sized hole.
I love it.
That's where my book's gonna go.
You know?
That's awesome.
Yes.
I've been doing that since I was a teenager.
Mine were always by Elizabeth Moon, you know. Because
Yeah.
Oh,
she's amazing.
So great. So good.
I do want to throw this out just because everybody should be negative once in a while, but it's not really. I think as to be responsible, we should also talk about that if you are an author that say this is your first podcast you've listened to and you're going to start self-publishing, you should look at publishers, all publishers, whether big, small, or otherwise, and do your due diligence, because
absolutely
anybody can start a publishing house in 10 minutes and take your money and not do anything for you. So you have to do your due diligence. So
and the thing that I really encourage people to do is you have to think of this as a business. Even if you're not trying to make it like your primary source of income, writing and publishing, the minute you decide to publish, it is a business, and you have to treat it like a business, which means understand that every relationship that you have is a business relationship, and it is a business deal. And you have to go into it with that mindset of, yes, Marisa, I like you and we are friends and I want us to remain friends, but this is a business relationship. And so in the context of our business relationship, these are your responsibilities. These are my responsibilities. This is what I commit to. This is what you commit to. And as long as we're on the same page, and it's the same thing with publishers, which again is one of the things that I can't say enough about both Bing and Chris Kennedy, is that I have never had them not answer my questions with regard to contracts and, things of sort of legal nature, and I have not yet had to fall back on my sort of, flippant sort of, hey guys, so I'm only asking this question 30 million times because I need an answer because I'm too pretty for prison. Like, I don't have to do that with them. They understand that I'm too pretty for prison. And so they're able to make sure that everything is the way that it is, which is something that I want in my business relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Always
back to Scott's point, just so everybody knows, if you are a writer just getting into this and you are looking at trad houses and that sort of thing, there's a great resource with the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association called Writer Beware, an old writing teacher of mine named Ann Crispin, and I think it was Victoria Strauss founded it. And basically they look for the scams and the crooked people out there trying to rip writers off. So if you do get an offer or you do get some sort of interest from somebody, I highly recommend checking in with Writer Beware and seeing if they have if they've dinged them for anything. Because it's
related to that also is we want to make your book into a movie.
Yeah.
So
just wanted to throw that out there. Guys, we are coming up on time. And I gotta say, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. Marisa, congratulations on your first novel.
Thank you.
I think that's an awesome life moment there. But Kacey, Marisa, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks everybody else for coming to hang out with us in the chat and the shenanigans. And some of y'all need to look at your interests, because wow, that's all I'm gonna say. Fucking wow.
Cannot wait to see this. Fantastic.
All right, let us know what you think about the show in the comments below, and give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and come on back next week for some more shenanigans. We love to hear from everybody. And for Scott Moon, I am Chuck Manley, and Josh Hayes is at the airport. And we've been live with Kacey Ezell and Marisa Wolf. Come back next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Later.
Bye.
Still live.
Still there.
Look at that. We're still what?
You know why we're still live?
Hey guys.
You know why we're still live? Because I have to push the button. I'm waiting.
Yeah, on you.